We're going to talk more about the production's possibilities frontier and more specifically in increasing a country's productivity and production and related to the idea of specialization. In order to do this, we're going to need to introduce another country into our examples. Now, we're going to use real countries, but not totally real examples here. We have Canada and Germany, and the items they're producing are now corn and bread. So this table here shows how much of each product each country can produce in an hour if they only produce if they only focus on producing those items for an hour at a time. So we have for Canada, it can produce 5 things of corn in an hour, or it can produce 15 loaves of bread in an hour. And for Germany, it can produce 10 things of corn in an hour or 5 loaves of bread in an hour. Now, if we were only looking at one country again, like with Canada, then Canada could either be producing only 5 things of corn in an hour or only 15 of the loaves of bread in an hour, or it can produce some combination of that, but because opportunity costs exist, Canada cannot produce like 20 things, 20 like food products in an hour. That is simply not possible. So this is where specialization comes into play. If we have two countries that are trading with each other, Canada and Germany, then each country can focus on producing the thing that they are better at producing in order to trade for what they don't have, and then both countries will end up better off. So these are some pretty easy numbers for this example here. We can see that Canada is better at producing bread because they produce more bread in an hour than corn in an hour. And Germany is the opposite. It can produce more corn than bread in an hour. Even if Canada produces like 15 loaves of bread versus and Germany can only produce 10 things of corn in return, and that's technically not even. That's still better than if Canada were to produce its own corn and Germany were to produce its own bread. So it's the trick here is kind of just like basic multiplication. When you kind of multiply these different diagonal boxes, whichever one comes out with like more stuff being produced, that's how you kind of figure out which scenario would end up with the countries being better off, and I think in most cases. So that here, if Canada trades maybe like 5 loaves of bread with Germany for maybe 5 things of corn, then Canada ends up with 10 loaves of bread and 5 things of corn. Germany ends up with 5 things of corn, 5 things of bread. So both countries are better off than if they were just producing on their own. They could only have like one of these boxes, per country. Or if they tried to kind of produce both, they'd end up with like less stuff overall. So this is like why trade and specialization in trade is an important thing. And very quickly, if this hasn't been mentioned earlier, there the in these scenarios, the countries have competitive and absolute advantages. Absolute advantages are just like before trading, is there a product that the country is just better? One country is better at producing than the other. Canada has an absolute advantage in bread. Germany has an absolute advantage in corn because Canada can produce more bread in an hour than Germany. Germany can produce more corn in an hour than Canada. And then for comparative advantage, that's when you do this multiplication thing. So Canada still has the comparative advantage in bread because it can make more bread in an hour's time versus Germany. Germany has the comparative advantage in corn. In the next episode, we're going to look at more of these products. How many products can you make per hour sort of examples with differing numbers, so you see how different scenarios might be playing out. And then after that, we're going to look at the sort of flip version of this table with like how much labor is being used to produce something, like hours of labor, and how how you figure out absolute comparative advantage, whatever, in those sort of scenarios, because it's different from just this product per hour sort of thing.